Good afternoon, colleagues. It's lovely to see you all here today for our Cabinet meeting on Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Shall we consider our agenda for today's meeting then? Item number 1, apologies. I don't believe we've received any of them. Okay, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? Item number 3 on our agenda then are the minutes from the February 2023 Cabinet, and these can be found on pages 3 to 16 of the packs. I hope members have all had an opportunity to read through the minutes from the previous meeting. Are members content to move these as a true record?
Happy to move.
Yep. Thank you very much for that. Moving to item number 4 then. Newport City Council core TOMS, that's themes, outcomes and measures, for measuring social value in contracts. And colleagues, this item is available in pages 17 to 30 of the Cabinet packs. Now, as the first item, it's a report on the Council's use of themes, outcomes and measures in our procurement activity when buying goods and services which are designed to leverage in social value for our communities and our city. And you will recall, Cabinet, that we do have a commitment, an overarching commitment as a Labour administration to driving forward social value for our communities and our city. So previously we've agreed to adopt TOMS as our overarching framework for social value measurement and reporting, and we agreed this around 12 months ago. This report sets out the long list of core measures which will be used when purchasing goods and services. Now, as a council, we recognise that the way in which we manage our spending with suppliers, service providers and contractors can make a significant contribution to our priorities in enhancing the social, economic, cultural and environmental well-being of our city by securing long-term added value and social benefits which achieve this. The TOMS achieve this social added value through a measurement framework which allows an unlocking of social value through its integration into procurement activity. The methodology was developed in conjunction with the WLGA National Procurement Network and the National Social Value Task Force Wales, which is a cross-sector working group combining both public and private sector organisations. From a list of around 90 measures in the national framework, the Council's procurement team have worked with officers around the Council to develop a core list of around 45 measures, representing this Council's long list, if you like, of measures for use locally. Council tenders for contracts will now incorporate a smaller number of these, around 5, which are suitable to the nature of those services and goods being procured, and these will be scored alongside other criteria of price and quality. And for your information, these are shown in the report's appendix. Measures in relation to our suppliers' carbon footprint and its reduction will be required to be used as default. In doing this, it clearly sends a message to all of our suppliers and partners that we look to leverage in social and value and other key benefits when spending the Newport pound. In addition to these specific measures, our tenders will make it clear that as a council, we strongly encourage our suppliers to pay their staff at least the real living wage, and we will gather information through the TOMS on suppliers' performance in this regard, as well as ensuring their fair work criteria is also robust, which ensures their workers are treated with fairness and with equity. Now, I'm just going to pause at that point and open for any comments on this particular item. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. I very much welcome adopting the core list of themes, outcomes and measures which will ensure the delivery of social value, sustainable procurement and promote local supply chain development. As the Leader states, this aligns with our manifesto commitments and will help the Council meet the wellbeing objectives which were set out last year that underpin our decision-making process. A good example of where this will work is ensuring we prioritise local supply chains as well as an emphasis on employing a local workforce. This will help us to achieve our carbon neutrality objectives within the city and will also strengthen our commitment to achieving the key objective 1, which focuses on education and employment. It's important to note that measuring social value in financial terms will mean that a return on the investment ratio can be calculated so that outcomes can be measured in real terms that we can all understand and can be easily demonstrated. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Hughes.
Good afternoon, Leader. I recall the original approval of the overarching framework that came to Council in early 2022. I'm pleased that the core list of TOMs is before us today. And as you said, it's a framework for delivering excellence in measuring and reporting social value. I think it will support the commissioning team to think about the wider social, economic and environmental benefits, which I'm sure we all welcome. But particularly in social care, I hope it will lead to a deeper and stronger relationship with our voluntary agencies and social enterprises and support innovation, leading to a healthier, safer and more resilient communities throughout Newport. So I think this is more about valuing more than just money, and it's about the importance of local communities, better health, better environments and a thriving local economy. I'm sure in other ways it will support the Welsh language as well. It's a tool that will recognise and support the Council's ambition as a driver of the local economy through responsible procurement, and I'm really happy to support this afternoon.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Any further contributions? Councillor Forsey.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome the introduction of these measures. It puts into practice what many of us feel it instinctively is the right thing to do, but doesn't fit into a formal framework. Merely selecting procurement on price doesn't take into account many important aspects, such as the value to people living locally in terms of jobs, training and the development of our communities. When we talk about feeding back into local jobs, this is not just any job, but jobs that are fair with good working conditions and training opportunities. The job aspect quite rightly takes on the largest factors in this scheme, but I would like to highlight some of the environmental benefits of these measures. Procurement is one of the hardest to tackle sources of greenhouse gases. Some of the activities valued in this scheme are resource efficiency, CO2 savings, sustainable ecosystem management and the protection of native wildlife and biodiversity. I welcome these measures.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Forsey. Councillor Batruni.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to emphasise how this relates to our corporate plan wellbeing objectives that I've frequently heard you mention. It's important to emphasise in a public place that these just aren't words. These are our strong commitments, and this is a demonstration of those commitments. And just remind everyone, 3 of those, economy and education and skills. Newport's a thriving and growing city that offers excellent education. This is the step towards that. Environment infrastructure, as my colleague just outlined, Councillor Forsey. Newport's a city that seeks to protect and enhance our environment while reducing our carbon footprint. Fulfills that. And critically, at the end, an inclusive and fair, sustainable council. Newport City Council is an inclusive organisation that places social value, fairness and sustainability at its core. And this is what we're doing at its core. Not just words, but now you can see its action. But I want to emphasise, and I'm sure you will as well, this is the start of the process of what we're going to look at, and we're going to refine it and hone it and make it work for Newport. But we have to start, and we're starting now.
Thank you, Councillor Batruni, and you're absolutely right there to emphasise this is a reflection of the commitment that we have made to people of Newport, and will be our continued commitment as we continue to receive updates on this and monitor the progress of this as we go forwards. Any further contributions from colleagues? Okay, so Cabinet, we're asked to approve the developed Newport City Council core list of TOMs for measuring social value delivery through commissioning, procurement and contract management and their associated reporting. Are members content to approve that? Okay, thank you very much everyone for your contributions there. We'll move then to item number 5 on our agenda today, the Corporate Risk Register update for Quarter 3. This is on pages 31 to 74 of your packs. and covers the period from the 1st of October to the 31st of December 2022. The Council's risk management policy and corporate risk register enables this administration and our officers to effectively identify, manage and monitor those risks which could prevent us from achieving our strategic priorities and to undertake our statutory duties as a local authority. The Q3 risk report will also be presented to the Council's Governance and Audit Committee later this month to review the Council's risk management process and governance arrangements. Now, considering the financial challenges, the increasing demand and pressures on our Council services and the cost of living crisis, colleagues will note that several risks have increased the target risk score, which means that as a Council, we are having to accept or tolerate more risk. This isn't a position that any Council administration would like to manage, but Cabinet and senior officers will ensure that these are closely monitored and, where appropriate, take the necessary actions. At the end of Q3, Newport City Council had 47 risks recorded across the Council's 11 service areas. Those risks that are deemed to pose the most significant risk in the delivery of the Council's corporate plan and services are escalated to the Council's corporate risk register for monitoring. At the end of Q3, 14 risks were recorded in the corporate risk register. Now, in comparison to Q2, there were no new or escalated risks, and 13 of these remained at the same score as Q2. One risk, ash dieback disease, had its risk score reduced from 16 to 12 as a result of the Council undertaking significant works on its tree stock across the city. And I'm sure that as residents of the city, we're all very much aware of the intense work that has gone on with regard to mitigating this particular risk. Now, at this point, colleagues, I'd like to pose and open for any further contributions or comments. Would anybody like to comment on this particular item? Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. As you quite rightly state, the purpose of the risk register is to identify those high-level risks that could impact on the delivery of our corporate plan. And as Cabinet members, our focus is to mitigate those risks where they're identified within our portfolios. But as Cabinet Member for Education, I'm very aware of the financial pressures that our schools are currently facing. Despite an increase in funding, inflationary pressures are a very, very real problem. But please be assured we're working hard with all our schools to provide support and advice in the planning of their budgets, and professional advice is available for all those that need it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Leader, for the assurance on that particular topic. Any further comments? Okay then, as a Cabinet, we've been asked to consider and agree the contents of the corporate risk register and to continue to monitor the risks and the actions being taken to address the risks identified in the report. Are members content to agree that? Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda, item number 6, is our policy review of customer feedback, compliments, comments and complaints. And this is on pages 75 to 94 of the packs that we've received. The purpose of the report is to seek Cabinet approval of our amended policy. The primary driver here being to simplify and refine our policy and outline how Newport City Council administers customer feedback. The policy remains relevant and continues to reflect the latest statutory and legislative requirements. And colleagues, that you will also be aware that there is an annual report on complaints, comments and compliments performance, and this is on our work programme for later this year. So at this point, I'd just like to introduce the Cabinet Member and ask if the Cabinet Member would like to comment on this item.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I just want to emphasise the Public Service Ombudsman wrote to all councils in order to make sure our complaints compliments process was consistent and we are adhering as a good council should do, to that request, and making sure it's refined and is consistent. But I want to emphasise on this area, here, we're not just going to stick to the basics of what we're required to do. We strive and will continue to seek excellence. And that's a never-ending process. And so over the next year, watch this space in this area about how we will move. We're moving, we've got certain aspects that are 21st century, but there are other aspects that need to be. So we are customer-facing or resident-facing organisations that deals with the worries, concerns and comments, both complimentary and critical, and that we learn from all those comments. So watch this space, Leader.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that, Cabinet Member, and thanks to you for the leadership that you've shown in this particular area. It's much appreciated. Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Leader. Very much supporting the Cabinet Member. My understanding of this, it's a review of how complaints and compliments are managed, and this is a process to ensure that we're listening to our residents and responding to their concerns. And this is very much one of our manifesto commitments, and it's an integral component to our corporate plan. But I particularly welcome, having reviewed the report, I welcome the readability and accessibility of this document, and I hope that residents are able to use this to guide them through the complaints process, ensuring they achieve an outcome that has been appropriately brokered. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Deputy Leader. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Leader. In the tradition maybe of sort of the social care sort of section of social services, you may know or you'll be aware that my predecessor, Councillor Paul Cochrane, was a very strong advocate of complimenting our staff as well. And I know often the focus is very much on the negatives. But what we have done in social care recently is introduce that compliment section into our briefings, where it gives the opportunity for us to acknowledge the fabulous work that goes on in social care. And only this week we had a genuinely lovely letter of a resident talking about one of our staff in the reablement team. And it's for us, it'll be about moving forward now about how we acknowledge those successes and the high and highlight really the achievements and high standard of work that is going on in social care. Although we obviously recognise the importance of complaints as well. It's just to sort of emphasise the importance as well of the other side of that, which is we do get many compliments as well, which it's just to acknowledge. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you very much, Leader. Like my colleague has just stipulated, quite right, we've had really positive feedback for basically about members of staff there. It's always easy to make complaints, and yes, of course, we should learn from that and always learn. But it's always harder to hear about compliments because we only hear about complaints when something goes wrong, but it's harder to know when things are going right because they are going right. And I think, you know, we can easily acknowledge that as councillors, as cabinet members, but I think, you know, it's about that way of being able to capture that and also being able to praise staff when we hear positives, learn from any complaints, but have confidence that we are able to do that and live and learn, and also to basically encourage and promote when staff do well, and hopefully it will be really good, you know, in bringing them forward developmental wise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Leader. Just very briefly, just really sort of backing up what my colleague said at the start, that, you know, this is a positive move forward. But as mentioned, this is just the start of the process, which I think is key. This isn't going to happen overnight, and I think sort of people need to realise this. And I think also, again, taking the words, this is an ongoing challenge. But it's a challenge that we won't shy away from. It is something which I know everyone within the council will get behind. And by doing that, this can only benefit the residents of Newport again. So absolutely fully behind this.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Clark. Any further comments? So just reflecting there on the contributions from colleagues. It's a very clear message, I think, from us as a Cabinet to the citizens of Newport that actually to us all feedback is important, whether that's, positive feedback in the form of compliments, or whether it's more negative feedback that requires further action to be taken in the form of complaints. All feedback is important, and as a listening council, we very much value this because we can use this as an opportunity both to improve the services that we provide, but also to share good practice across the organisation as well and recognise the contribution that our officers make. So very important, an important policy. I'll just summarise the key changes that we're considering. So as we've discussed, it's about the simplification and refinement of the policy. We've provided further detail around refusal criteria, clarified processes in terms of corporate and social services complaints, so making it much easier for our residents to actually understand that. And it's really important that we help people in that way. Reducing the time frame for accepting corporate complaints, and the inclusion of performance monitoring details, which I'm sure we'll all agree are very important going forwards. So, Cabinet, are you content to agree the amended policy and to agree for its publication? Yep.
Yep, content.
Thank you very much for that, colleagues. Item number 7 on our agenda is our external pressures update. This is on pages 95 to 100 of the packs. And you will recall that we have agreed that for us as a Cabinet, this is an incredibly important standing item that we want to review on a regular basis in order to ensure that both we're made aware as Cabinet members of the challenges that our communities face, but also that we're also making the public aware of the actions that we're taking to try and address some of these challenges too. So the cost of living crisis continues to be the main area of concern for our residents, the council and communities. And this report provides information on the wider impact this is having, along with examples of collaborative advice, guidance and support across the city. At this point, colleagues, as in previous Cabinet meetings, I really urge residents who are experiencing difficulties with any of these issues, please contact us for information and for signposting on the advice and support that is available to you. All of your elected members can help you in that way. They can signpost you to the support that you need. Now, colleagues, as you can see from the report, the cost of living pressures are continuing to persist. Costs in energy, food and other living costs are continuing to impact on household budgets. We're also seeing reports of supply chain issues with fresh produce and suppliers reporting increasing energy bills and poor weather affecting crops, which is having both a direct impact on our residents and also in the availability of produce for dissemination from our food banks. So this is not just something that many of us would see as consumers going into supermarkets and shops. This is also impacting on our food banks too. And the impact of the cost of living crisis is also affecting how we welcome people seeking sanctuary. For example, with reductions in offers for accommodation on the Homes for Ukraine scheme. You know, people are feeling the pressures and finding it very difficult to offer accommodation to other people. It's very clear to us, and certainly from the work that we've done so far this year, that the nature of the pressures facing our residents, our communities and our services require a collaborative approach to support. This really isn't something that we can do alone. And as chair of the One Newport Partnership, it's clear to me how our officers and our partner organisations are working together to provide as much advice, support and guidance as possible. Our collaboration with Gavo continues to support community food organisations in Newport, and our facilitation and promotion of warm centres are central to helping our residents to eat well and keep warm, and provide an opportunity for people to get together and find out about the help available. And this can include initiatives such as the Money Guiders programme, which is aimed at helping residents to maximise income and reduce debt. And indeed, Councillor Clark, we visited a social group funded through this scheme in our own community, as many elected members have done, and I know that Cabinet members have done. So at this point, I'll just pause and ask if there are any contributions. Councillor Harvey.
Thanks, Leader. Again, it's a compliment. It's us as a Cabinet, me personally thanking our officers, our teams. Gavel, been phenomenal. I've just picked up some of the updated operation overview between the Council and Gavel for December 22 to February 23. We held 149 sessions in the warm spaces and we had over 1,160 attendees. That is quite startling, because what would have happened to those 1,160 people if they couldn't have gone to a warm space? And it's so easy for things to spiral and get worse and worse and worse. But unless we step up and do something, it's no good waiting for central government, because they're obviously not going to do anything. Your general basket of food has gone up by 22%. Your energy has gone up hundreds of percent. Nobody can afford to live anymore with the way things are going. They said inflation would drop to below 10%. It actually went up to 10.4%. And the ONS have serious concerns, as do the rest of us. We live and breathe it every day. We are continuing to work. We're continuing to do what we can do. Newport City Council delivered 50 sessions and 152 people came to that, with the North Hub, East Hub, Central Hub, West Hub, a couple of the community centres, and Gavel delivered 99 sessions and over 1,000 people attended them. So I really do take my hat off, because this was done really quick to address a serious issue that was happening right smack in the middle of winter, and our staff were phenomenal in getting this out, as was our Gavel staff, and my heartfelt thanks to them for that.
Absolutely, and we echo that, Councillor Harvey. And yet again, another really powerful example of how local governments can mobilise really quickly to support the communities that they serve. And again, I'm sure Cabinet will support you in your thanks there to officers. Councillor Batruni.
I switched myself off, probably appropriately. It was just to emphasise how local government and this council are picking up the mess driven by UK government. And people say, OK, that's your political statement, but it's backed up by research. And it actually bleeds into the last embers of the Labour government in 2008. Brought the economy down. We bailed them out and then tore austerity ever since. Wages are £11,000 off where they should be, the average worker. There's a real life consequence for that, and we are picking up the tab. Local government are picking up the tab as they cut our budgets, as they cut the Welsh government's, and ours are cut consequently while the pressures increase. So we're dealing with term, and now we're dealing, as my council colleague, Councillor Harvey, outlined, the short-term, hopefully short-term shock of inflation, because to bring inflation down, the Bank of England will increase interest rates, which will increase mortgage rates and pile yet more pressure. And as my colleague hinted at the UK government, they extended the energy scheme, but the market's broken. Gas, for the last 3 months, only, I think, $2 per therm, which it was $9. But has anyone seen a reduction in their gas prices? The gas market is broken. So we're dealing with poor regulation from the UK government, poor handling of the economy. And it's worth bearing in mind that all we want, if you want us to fight the social consequences that we're facing, is a fair settlement for the Welsh Government and a fair settlement for us, so we can ease those social pains while they seem to exacerbate it.
Absolutely, Councillor Petruni, and once again, I'm sure all Cabinet colleagues are in agreement with that particular comment. Deputy Leader.
Thank you. And leading on from that, Councillor Petruni, each day at school, children from a low-income and disadvantaged background face practical challenges where they have to negotiate or overcome a number of obstacles that range from having the right clothes, the right equipment, accessing school transport, obtaining food, as well as access to extracurricular activities. Most recent figures in Wales show that 31% of our children live in poverty, whereby there is insufficient resources to afford food, living conditions are substandard, and there's a lack of access to open spaces and a quality of life that most of us take for granted. Newport schools, especially post-pandemic, have risen to this challenge and are supporting those children and their families where it's clear hunger and deprivation is a daily struggle. Schools are using PGG funding and other grants to set up food banks, uniform libraries, as well as support and help to access benefits and housing advice. Where a school is taking action to ensure that all children from low-income families have an equitable experience in their school life is also a school which I believe is helping to secure the human rights of their pupils under the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. I believe that we all have a moral duty and purpose to make that difference, as ultimately it's about aspiration and attainment for our children. We all want our children to achieve the best possible outcomes. Whatever difference we can make truly matters. So on Monday, I actually met with Newport head teachers and we launched an anti-poverty strategy for our schools. And this aligns with Newport City Council's wellbeing objectives, with Objective 1 specifically focusing on improving skills, education and employment opportunities, where it's clearly stated there's an intention to reduce inequalities in education by improving outcomes for pupils disadvantaged by poverty. This will be an opportunity to share best practice, generate new ideas and to ultimately improve outcomes and opportunities for our children. The intention is to develop a tiered approach of support for schools, and especially for children, where a bespoke offer of support will stop disengagement with education. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Deputy Leader, and of course your comments really emphasise how important it is that we do whatever we can to break this cycle. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I wasn't going to speak. Thank you, Leader. Sorry, I wasn't going to speak, but and I think a lot of it's been covered. I really hope the residents of Newport listen to this cabinet meeting, because we're speaking from the heart. You know, this isn't a political spin. We're speaking from the heart because we're living it in the worlds we come from, and the worlds we work in, and the worlds we sort of spend every day, and we see this. And you know, I think I mentioned it in the last council meeting. It's been mentioned today about Westminster. That's not going to change. The only way that will change is if a Labour government gets control. And then what will we have control of? That's a worry. And you know, if I hear the Prime Minister keep saying we're on the side of the people, I don't know what people he's on the side of, but it's not the people I know. But we've got to look at ourselves locally. And Newport is on the side of the people. Newport Labour has always been on the side of the people. And we always will be. It is going to be tough. But as always, we roll our sleeves up. We get involved. We go where it hurts. But we do the best for the people of Newport. But I would mention, it was mentioned before about the officers involved and the hubs, etc. But also, I think it's the mention of the volunteers. What you do get in these situations, the tough situations, if good people come out. And again, on our visit to Malpas, it was volunteers who were there. And I really think they should get a mention today. So, yeah, there we go.
Absolutely, and thank you, Councillor Clark, for reminding us all of the importance that the volunteers make to all of our communities across the whole of the city. You are absolutely right. We would not be able to implement any of these initiatives without those kind and generous people that give their time freely and expect no reward. So thank you so much for that. Councillor Forsey.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to briefly mention some of the cost of living sessions and to say thank you to colleagues and officers who have helped. There is some help available, not as much help as we would like, but there's some help available. And some benefits are very underclaimed. And everybody who came to our cost of living sessions, we were able to help them with claiming something that they perhaps didn't know about. So I would say, if you are struggling, please get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Forsey. An important message there. Any further contributions from colleagues? So, colleagues, are you content to note the report? Item number 8 on our agenda is the One Newport summary document, and I'd just like to draw your attention to that document there for information. Item number 9, colleagues, is our work programme. This is on pages 101 to 108 of your packs. This is our final item on our agenda today. And colleagues, are you content to accept the updated work programme? Yeah? Okay. At that point, I'd like to thank you all for your very thoughtful and considered contributions to our discussion today and draw the meeting to a close. Thank you all.